switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about a little natural resource concern that you may have heard of called soil health. And David Lamm is here from NRCS Soil Health Division, and he has prepared a presentation for you. So I'm going to step in the back and allow David to have some time.
Wow. Well, let's talk about boot camp. I can remember I went to boot camp. Yeah. A little different. Actually, a while back, and I had the opportunity to go to boot camp with Acting Chief Jordan. You know, it's been great in my career. Certain notes were taken and photos taken, and they've been pulled out of time and advanced my career quite a bit. Now, actually, it's great to have someone talk about boot camp like that. Leonard being part of that, and it's directly affected how he's leading the division or leading the agency. So, the other thing I want to put a plug in, I really like NACD. I've had the fortune, I worked as a DC out in the field for 25 years before I got ambitious and did something else. I thought I was ambitious. And I got the chance to work with some really great people at the district level. I don't know if Jim Lake, anybody knows that name. Jim worked for NACD for a number of years, was working in the office when I was at DC. His brother, Greg, Jim was the first district employee in the state of Indiana, and then his brother took over his job when Jim went to be there. And it's really great opportunities. And some of the fondest memories I have is working with the district there in Allen County. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is about that. So what are we going to talk about? You know, everybody, you can't pick up a publication related to agriculture and hear anything about soil health. I mean, that's just, it's a phenomenon out there. It's unparalleled. I've been around 40 plus years, never seen anything like it, other than maybe when no-till started out a little bit. This is the second wave of that, so to speak. You know, so what is it, you know, and people wonder, what's NRCS done? Well, what NRCS commitment is a division, which I have to be the fortune to be part of, that's out there. And what the division is, I know you can't read that, but there's 20 of us in the division. We have 17 of us that are out in the field. Specialists out there working with districts, working with conservation partners, working with land grants. What are we doing? Well, we're training folks on soil health. We're providing that, you know, workshops, field days, whatever. We got people driving up and down the highway at all hours of the night, providing and conducting training to anybody and everybody listen to us. Out there kind of like these soil health evangelists. I really think we got the cream of the crop. We're also working on ways to assess soil health. We talked about that a little bit in yesterday's meeting, you know, with the idea of developing a plan in order to improve the health, the resilience of our nation's soil. You know, and ultimately we want to be able to see this plan implemented. Again, we work with all sorts of partners, trying to ensure a scientific basis and all that good economic data out there. You talk about training. We've been around about 3 years. You know, this is data. I should have updated this. This is from last year. Our folks did over 250 different training events to over 26,000 participants. That's NRCS, that's conservation partners, that's private sector, that's farmers. You know, I got the opportunity. I was supposed to do a little of that in my job. I work at Greensboro. I worked with 6 soil and water districts there in North Carolina in the last year making presentations. You know, got a chance to work with Wrangler Jeans. Wrangler Jeans is all over soil health. They heard one of our presentations down in Atlanta. You go Google their site, Wrangler Sustainability, and they're advocating that their cotton producers follow the principles of soil health. How big is that, folks? How big is that? Okay, this year you talk about training, and there's a lot of boot camp. Well, you know, one thing NRCS is doing is going through this big effort to certify conservation planners, and I know you all have probably heard about that at some point over the last year or so. Part of the requirement, you think about this, is we're requiring every certified planner to have gone through a soil health component of that. You know, they have to go through 10 modules. This is a 3-day course. I can remember when they asked us, we were updating the course, somebody stuck their head in down at Fort Worth. Hey, how many sessions do you guys do in the next year? Oh, we do about 30. Okay, next thing I know, this is part of the criteria. So this is what everybody has to go through, soil health basics. They got to learn about linking biology to soil health. What's that all about? Got to learn about the planning principle. Got to talk about regenerating soil health and planning. What's it take to do that? Rethinking management paradigms. All these good things, you know, that takes about 3 days. The key to it here is a farm visit. You know, I've been doing this class for a number of years, and it finally dawned on me, I can go anywhere in the United States and see degraded, non-functioning soils. You know, we can That'd be easy. But you can't go everywhere and see functioning soil, healthy soils. So we're really picky about the sites we got because we want people to calibrate their eyes and understand what healthy soils are supposed to do. And then we want them to visit with the producer who made the decisions that resulted in that functioning soil. And so hopefully district employees can take part in this. I know I'm working with, coming over here yesterday, I was talking with Maryland and Delaware. How can we incorporate district employees to get this part of the training? Because you're such a vital part of what we're trying to do out here. So let's talk about soil health. That was kind of my intro here, and I know I got a few minutes. I should have started my watch, but that's the trouble when you get somebody who's been around as long as I have, and I talk all the time. You just got to shut me off. So anyway, hopefully this is an above-average group. I like to think about people who come to this kind of meeting would already understand what the definition of soil health is. It's the idea of soil having the continued capacity of soil to function as a vital living ecosystem. Sustainability. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about looking at soils beyond that physical and chemical components that we've got reams of information. Pastor mentioned the Web Soil Survey. We get all sorts of data about those two things. We don't really have that much about the biological component. The fact that soil is a living, respiring organism, ecosystem, okay? This idea of soil function. I go around the country, I always talk to farmers, what is it you want your soils to do? What is it you expect? Young man was talking, no, it was Dan. Yeah, but about, he had a good example. Somebody in his neighborhood there in Illinois, right? Used cover crops 3 years, had no idea what he was supposed to get out of that. After the end of the 3 years, he quit doing it. He didn't understand what soil functions were. So what are those? Because if you don't understand, this is really important, if you don't understand what your soils are supposed to do, how can you even begin to gauge whether they're degraded or not? That's a really key point. So let's start. What do you expect your soils to do? What's one thing?
Soil nutrients.
Nutrients. It's supposed to cycle nutrients, okay? That's a good thing. But most people don't realize that 50% of that material they put out in any given year never ends up in the plant. Where does it go? It ends up in that soil food web if it's robust and functioning, or it ends up somewhere that we don't want it to be. But we need to think about that when we identify a resource problem. What's another resource concern? Or function of soil?
Old water.
Old water. Water everywhere. But never drop to drink. You think about that, how important that is. Soils are supposed to meant to infiltrate and hold on to. And unfortunately, we accept degraded conditions as the norm. We accept that as the norm, and we try and design around that. And I'll emphasize that. What else? We apply products. We expect our soil biology to break down those chemicals that we put out there. It's part of the process. Filter out pollutants. Here's one. Physical stability. We've got to be able to cross the field. A young man was telling me about yesterday. He noticed over time those little gullies are going away. One of the strongest selling points I had for soil health, or for no-till when I was at DC, farmers would come in and they say, Lamm, I love that no-till because I didn't rut the field up in the fall. Think about that. And people, one of my pet peeves is, you always hear folks say, we're always cautious, oh, it takes so long to build soil health, you got to be patient. That's BS, folks. We're not talking geological soil formation here. We're talking about where we're talking from parent material to topsoil. We're talking about rejuvenating that top 6, 7, 8 inches. Happens in 1 year. Think about it. That's a measurable unit that a farmer can define. So don't believe this stuff, it takes eons. It can happen a lot faster if you follow the principles that I outlined. And the whole thing here is soil is a habitat. And I tell people, farmers, you're not a farmer anymore, you're a habitat manager. Because every organism, whether it's me, an elephant, or a basicular mycorrhizal fungi, we all need 3 things to survive. We need a place to live, we need something to eat, and we need something to drink. And you provide that, whether you recognize it or not, by the management decisions you make every day. And if we can get the biology right, all these other soil functions will fall into place. Okay? All right. Now let's talk about, that's what NRCS is doing. We're preaching the gospel of soil health. This is what we're used to looking at, right? How many pictures have we seen of erosion over the years? Okay? You think about that, we got we see gully erosion, classic example, got some wind erosion going on. But the problem is it gives us a narrow view of soil as a resource concern. We only look at it in the context of sheet and rill, ephemeral, wind erosion. And soil is so much more than that. Where's the problem here? Is this soil functioning, nutrient cycling, water infiltration? Is it cycling? Obviously, it doesn't have an erosion problem, does it? Okay? This is a non-functioning soil. It's flat. You know, it's flat, it's poorly drained, it's compacted. I helped create this problem. This is in northwest Ohio. I was in D.C. in Allen County, which is the very western edge of the Lake Erie Basin. Okay? We told those folks, you don't have an erosion problem, you don't have a soils problem. But in reality, they do. Because these soils are compacted, you go out there, and the only hump in the field is the fence row. So why is the fence row sticking out? It's because we compacted the soil. There's no large pore spaces anymore. So we have compaction, which reduces infiltration, which increases runoff. What's the off-cycle impact? Look at this, good example. This is from northwest Ohio. Again, I'm not picking on them, well, I guess I am. But here's a system. You know the scenario, 3/4 inch of rain, real close together, long-term no-till with cover crops. Where's the water? This soil is degraded, folks, but yet we haven't really thought about it, and what we've done is the impact of that is this. What is that? That's Lake Erie. You're not supposed to have green water because of algae blooms. So what do? We immediately go from being a soil problem to a water quality problem. And why is that a significant philosophical change? Because when you take it out of the realm of soil and you move it to water, all you're dealing with is the materials that are applied. You're not trying to improve how that material is cycled through the system. You're not trying to improve how the water infiltrates into the soil and is held on during that critical time. And that is a huge difference, folks, a huge difference. This is some interesting information. Again, I helped create this problem, and I'm going to show. I'm not proud of that. I'm actually doing penance is what I'm doing here. This is some work David Baker, Heidelberg College, out of the Phosphorus Reduction Task Force. You can see here's Maumee River, starts in downtown Fort Wayne. All this stuff, 5,000 CFI over about a 20-year period, and then in 1995, it started to go up. Now there's more water going down the river. Now, why is that? Did we add more acres to the watershed? No. Overland flow, right? What happened in 1995? We promoted the heck out of vertical tillage. And what we did, Jim Horman, our specialist there, described it well. We reduced the size of the flower pot. We used to have a 6 or 8 inch flower pot, because that's where that compactor layer was. Now we moved it up to 2 to 3 inches. Increased runoff corresponding with increased dissolved reactive phosphorus, resulting in green water in Toledo. That's why we need to understand how soils are supposed to work, soils are supposed to function, so that when we design and identify a resource concern, we can develop a strategy that addresses it correctly. Anyway, I kind of beat that horse pretty hard there. But anyway, you can kind of see where I'm going with that. So what's NRCS doing? But the problem is this right here, our old resource concerns really kind of limited, tied our hands as far as what we could do with planning and ultimately financial assistance programs, because we didn't have a resource concern that addressed that situation. We didn't have one that recognized the off-site implications of compacted soil, soil that nutrients were not cycling properly and had weak aggregate stability. So we've changed that. We created some, I think we updated our resource concern. We got about 47 of them now. Compaction, organic matter depletion, loss of habitat for organisms, and aggregate instability, we've added those. That's really important because as a planner goes out, they can start to expand their horizons of what they're looking for as problems and help develop a system that addresses that. Now, let's explain more about that. This is what a resource concern is. It's this idea of an expected degradation of a soil, soil, water, air, plant, animal resource base to the extent that the sustainability and the intended use is impaired. So if you have a poor nutrient cycling soil, that use is impaired. It's not taken up to it. You have to put on more than what's necessary. See where I'm going with that? This is an example For compaction, we talk about managed induced compaction. We're not talking about getting rid of fragments or those inherent properties. We're talking about getting those man-induced things looked at. So we're talking about compaction. What it does, it restricts root depth, plant growth, and so forth. Organic matter depletion, the same thing. It's the managed induced depletion that reduces that organic. Now, why is organic matter important? It helps to create a soil that's more porous, holds on to water, and it provides a food source for the microbes. That's something we've overlooked. That's a tremendous thing, okay? That's a tremendous thing that we need to provide an active, ready available food source for those microbes. Aggregate instability. We've all seen the slate test, right? Soil falls apart. That's a good demonstration is that soils aren't capable of holding together the sand, silt, and clay particles without that biological component. What's that do? We recognize erosion when that sediment leaves the field, but I submit to you the idea that when that sediment is detached and it plugs up the pore spaces, just like my daughter's hair used to plug up that bathroom drain. You don't know what I'm talking about. It's the same principle plugs out what happens. It causes a dysfunctioning soil. Weak aggregate stability was caused by lack of organic matter and all these other principles. And then loss of habitat. Wildlife people kind of thought we were a little crazy because we tend to only give credit to wildlife that's above ground. Things you can see, where everything we're talking about is below ground. You can't see it. You know, you got to have a really good eyesight, which mine's not so good anymore. So now we have identified these resource concerns. How is a planner going to go out and determine there's a problem? You know? So I said, that is a problem. You know? So what we decided to do, we came up with a tool. Well, what we're trying to do was a simple goal of creating a process that can be used on site. So a planner can go out there, and the biggest thing we want them to do is have a conversation. Take that shovel out and start a dialogue with the producer. Why is this shovel not going in the ground here, but it's going over here? What do we see? What are we looking for? Given that opportunity, that's a key component, okay? And we also needed to document that there was a problem. You know, we are accountable to people up above, and they like to know why we're spending X amount of money. Astrid back there shaking, yeah, that's right. He likes to be able to go before whoever. We need a tool to document, but yes, a compaction is a problem, and this is why. Or the aggregate instability is a problem, and this is why. So we needed a tool like that, but we also needed a tool that worked within the confines of a planner. How many of you got soil quality test kits in your office? Okay, now when's the last time we were drug out? A great tool for education, very impractical for conservation planning. Why is that? Because planners are constrained by time. You can't spend 3 hours evaluating one field. That ain't happening, folks. We got to be quick. We got to have tools to do it quicker than that because of time. And we also have to be able to do it about any time of the year. You know, I could be conservation planning. No, I'm right there outside. So what indicators can we see today would tell me there's a soil health issue? That's what we tried to design the system for. And then we also recognize this, when it's been talked about, this need for training and understanding the lack of for the conservation planners out there. So, also we wanted the tool to be useful. That's always good to have a useful tool. There's a lot of tools out there that are not so useful. This one we hope to have be useful. We want it to be usable, practical. We didn't want any meters, no strips, no tests. You know, based on human observation and senses, your sight, your sound, your smell, even some taste there. Some of the old soil scientists used to be able to taste that soil. Anyway, it encourages that conversation. I think that's really important. To establish the NRCS and be able to convey our message, our understanding of these principles through a conversation led as we go through this process. So this is the indicators we come up with. A lot of soil health cards out there that go way beyond this, but this met our criteria. We're going to look at the residue. We're going to look at residue breakdown. And why residue is pretty easy. You know, we need residue to control erosion, right? That's an easy one. It's either there or it's not, some kind of percentage. Breakdown. Why is that a good indicator of health? You know, I used to stand. Yeah, that's right. I used to stand in front of groups like that. Man, look how good this corn stalk's doing. It's been here for 3 years. Yeah, that's how much I do. You know. Okay, I know better now. But the point is, residue shouldn't be there. In fact, there's good soil health farmers. You probably, if you follow the letter of the law, they might have a little trouble meeting that conservation compliance issue. The residue gets eaten up too fast, so we need to work with them. Okay, surface crusting, that's an old one, but a goodie. It's pretty obvious certain times of year you see that crusting. Why is that? That's because that soil has fallen apart and plugged up the holes, and now we got a crust that leads to reduced infiltration, increased runoff, and all those things that parallel are going down the line. Roots and pores. You know, I used to go out, we'd pull out corn plants, and all the roots would be in that 8-inch square around that plant. Is that the way they designed that plant to do that? No. Why was that? Because that soil would not allow it to penetrate. So roots will tell you a lot of stuff. They do not genetically design corn roots to hit a restricted layer and start going sideways. That's not, Garsh doesn't do that, okay? So you need to do that, root side aggregate instability. So these are the indicators that we've come up with. We've designed a description, tells you how to do it, what resource concerns you use. So I look at residue cover, they don't meet the criteria. It's probably a high probability that it's going to know we have either aggregate instability or loss of habitat or one of those three. And then we also have how you're going to conduct the measurement and then the rating criteria, which I can see that'll probably get adjusted over time as we learn more about that. We'll do another project we're working on. And then, of course, what we're doing here. So I need to keep moving. All right, so now we understand how soils are functioning. We understand the resource concerns addressed that are linked to poor soil function, and we've been able to identify. Now we want to develop a plan, a soil health management system that fits within our criteria. And it's interesting, of course, hopefully you all, I don't know if you can see that or not, we have 4 basic principles. We talk about minimizing disturbance, maximizing cover, maximizing diversity, and maximizing, we're doing a lot of maximizing here, you know, maximizing living roots. And if you really look at it in the context of planning, you got 2 on the right, protect things. You keep them covered, and you keep it there a long time. You're going to control erosion, you're going to control temperature, you're going to keep a cooler temperature, you're going to reduce evaporation so it protects the habitat. And the 2 on the right feed the habitat. Think about that. That living root transferring solar energy through the plant into the ground, through the plant exudates, feeds that plant over a broad spectrum of time. Most plants that you raise for commodity grow 90 to 100 days, 120 days, something like that. A lot of sunlight. I mow my lawn in December. Photosynthesis is taking place a lot more often than it was. So that's what we're doing. So you think about it, that's kind of an overwhelming task. A couple years ago, I added up all the conservation practices that we have. It's like 100, at the time there was 161, I think there's a few more. I thought, oh my God, how many of these can I actually use in a conservation plan? Well, you start to do a sort. 97 of them are engineered practices. Now, I don't mean to offend engineers, but my assumption was, I got 5 minutes, I can do it. If you have a bulldozer out there working, you're probably not building soil health, okay? That's it. That's a tool, you know, if you see a highway project, what do they have? They have heavy disc out there. So we eliminated 97 of them right away. They left about 21 that the national agronomist has a responsibility over, and 9 for our grazing specialist. But really, the grazers only have one practice. They got prescribed grazing, and then they have all these facilitating practices, water troughs and pipes and that kind of stuff. So you can see the list isn't quite as big as it is, okay? So that makes it a little more manageable when we start to work with producers and design systems. So, what practices do we have out there that do that? That meet this criteria? Well, cover crops and rotation meet the 2 on the left pretty easy. That's an easy one. You know, keep a living root growing a long time, get a lot more diversity in the rotation. No-till would help protect the cover, provide that long residue, or minimizing disturbance and provide that long-term. So these, what we consider every soil health management system for these are must-do. You got to have them in there, folks. And it needs to be in there as a system. We need to move away from individual practices, and I understand all the complexities. I used to be a program manager, so I understand how payments are made and all that kind of stuff. But we need to move away from that and think of a systematic approach. Because 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2 when you start to talk about that. It's 3 or 4. When you start to add the synergistic effect, such as when you add nutrient pest management, need to be part of that strategy. We need to understand how a pest management strategy is going to affect that food web. If the food web drives everything, and we come in and indiscriminately wipe something out, it's going to take a while for that to rejuvenate. It's going to set us back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back type of thing. So that's really important. Those are must-do practices. And then, of course, we're always going to have sites where you need buffers. You know, if you got irrigation, you need to manage the water, which is going to be really interesting because if your soil starts to function better, everything we've done today is based on a degraded system, so it's going to mess up all of those guys are going to go bonkers over that. And then we need to think about new technologies. You know, controlled traffic pattern. I think we got a practice standard. Precise application of nutrients and pesticides. Use of flotation tire. Things out there. I'm working with Buzz Clute, Dr. Buzz Clute out of the University of California, he wishes in California, South Carolina. He's working with us on a project he calls the CIG that changed my life. Now, I know the NRCS people don't believe me. That's what he calls it. Because what they did, they found out that he's working with a group of 10 farmers down South Carolina, coastal plain soils that are doing what I'm talking about here. And what they found out was the nutrient recommendations coming from the university that were created 50 years ago under entirely different farming systems don't necessarily, they weren't jiving up. They were putting too much fertilizer on. I got too many, okay, I can talk to that. So the bottom line was, Buzz put out there and did adaptive nutrient management, and they learned how to manage their soils, they learned how to manage their nutrients, and they're applying less, they're saving money, and it's a much better system. So, talk about a management system for cropland. We need to have quality no-till. We need to have adaptive nutrient management as part of that system. We need to have prescriptive cover crops. We need to have a diverse rotation and adopt new technology that comes available. And for you grazers out there, I'll run through this real quick. What we need to do, think about where's some of the most productive soils in the world? It's where we have buffalo roaming. Why were they productive? Because those cows, I mean, you think about it. You've all read descriptions. These big, huge herds of buffalo, they come in, you can just imagine. You wouldn't have wanted to walk across that right after. Let's just put that way. All right? But then they go away for a long time. So you had this intensive grazing, then you had these long periods of rest. That's what helped do that. Poor English there. That's what helped build that. So, did I get done? Anybody got any quick questions? So we're working on, go ahead.
So, in your slide that you showed technology, it was a very insulated tractor cab. So I wonder, it's been 80 years now since we've gotten rid of the horse and the single plow. And our farmers are more and more distant from the soil they're harvesting. Do you think our producers have lost connection with their soil? Do they just not know what's going on underneath them?
And that sounds like a negative. It's been my observation from where I've been that most farmers really don't understand what their soils are supposed to do to help them raise a crop. They know how to they know how a piece of steel goes through the soil. They know how about seed to soil contact, all those kind of things. But those functions related to cycling of nutrients, water. Why is water running? Why is my crop drying up in June when I got a half-inch of rain the other day? Well, it's because your water's running off. It's not soaking in. You know, yeah, I say, and I'm not going to blame the technology. That'd be an easy one. But I just think, I don't know. It's just we got so busy. But I think those farmers, like this, I keep looking at this young man over here did a great job yesterday. I don't know if you heard the presentation, so forgive me if I keep staring at you. Yeah, he got, and then his dad was even better. He had somebody come up to him later after the end of the meeting and started talking about soil health, and guys trying to make a case for tillage. And I just chuckled. I know if you saw me smiling back there because he was going down to points. I was going to interrupt. Well, you don't know anything. Let me take over here. Become a farmer to farmer. So yeah, I think that's part of it. But I'll tell you what. And I told you go to a soil health meeting and it's packed. Look at this one. It's packed. You know, Dave Brandt has a farm meeting in Ohio. $50. People pay $50 to come to his farm. This is an opportunity for you, young man. $50 to come to his farm and spend a day hearing speakers about soil health. Can you tell me what other thing a farmer would pay $50 to do to come to? That just tells you the interest out there. I'll shut up because I know. Go ahead.
Appreciate the work that you folks are doing. The one piece as you look down the road, and we heard it talked yesterday too, is what's our cost share? What can we do better from an incentive on this issue towards the farmer? And it doesn't, every time we listen in the state of Washington or others, there is not enough yet incentive to get people started at the rate I think we need to. And when I compare that with other practices in EQIP and other places, has NRCS been given some thought of how do we increase or what more can be done to get incentives built into this in some of your programs?
That's a good question. You know, I think we're trying, you know, I think, again, this is my opinion, if we can reward system approach, because you go out, again, Dan's example, you do one practice, you don't see the benefit, but if you do the system approach, and we can modify, and unfortunately, a lot of what we do with programs is dictated by Congress, and we have to work within those constraints. So I see an educational effort going up as well as going down, you know, and if they can get that appreciation, I think we'll see that, because, you know, it's obvious. Yeah, I really appreciate, I'll shut up here. This young man, think about it, he said he would not know how to farm conventionally. Is that what you said yesterday?
Yeah, it's like, you know, started out, that's how Dad always did.
You think about that. Think about it. We have a new generation of farmers that come on, and I've heard that comment several times from other people, that they would not know how to go back to farm. That's a subtle but very significant change, and it's people like him that's going to make it happen. So.